Well, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Jess here, LJ Farm and Outdoors. And today's video is all about the beetles. No, I'm not talking about those beetles. I'm talking about beetles that are actually useful, good for your land, good for your livestock. So let's dive in. So yeah, today we're going to talk about dung beetles. So a few weeks ago, I put an order in through dungbeetles.us. They are based in Texas. And I got those in and I wanted to get them released really quick, as soon as possible. So I went ahead and did that. But I did video it, so we will cut to that because I wanted you guys to kind of see what they were shipped in, how they were packaged and things like that, because, I know people, if you're like me, you probably, looked into them, but you just weren't sure. So I wanted to cover all that. That way, if anyone is interested in ordering dung beetles through them, you will know what to expect. And so we will cut to that, and then we're going to come back and talk all about dung beetles. In today's video, I have something that is very beneficial to your land and your livestock, but very few farms have these anymore, and that is dung beetles. So what I wanted to share with you today is where these came from, why I got them, and why you need them. When is the last time you seen a dung beetle on your property? So a few weeks ago, I placed an order through dungbeetles.us. They are based in Texas. And I know what you're thinking, why in the world would somebody order beetles that live in poop? I mean, it's crazy. You really can order anything on the internet these days. I know it sounds silly, but I have a reason, and I'm going to share that with you today. So let's get this box opened up. We'll talk about it, and then we will release these and see. It's just going to be interesting, I think. So I wanted to bring you guys along. All right. So let's check out what's in the box. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. As soon as these came in, I opened it because I just couldn't help it. But, plenty of padding in here. I just want to kind of show you the process of how Dung Beetles US kind of handles all this, because this is the first time I've used them. And I know there's going to be some people out there that are curious. So I wanted you to kind of see firsthand. So yeah, a lot of packaging in the box. So I actually ordered two separate species. I think they're different species, but one is a tumblebug, and those are the ones that I used to see when I was a kid that would actually roll the balls. And the other ones I have are rainbow scarabs, I believe. So this is what it comes in. So those are the tumblebugs. We'll look at those more here in a minute. And the rainbow scarabs, I got 2 cartons of those. These were actually on sale, so I bought 2 of them. And we will check these out a little bit closer also. So let's go ahead and open up one of these and see what we got inside. So I can actually see a couple of them on top here. All right. Don't know how well these are coming across on camera. There's a couple of them right there. Got 1, 2, 3, 4 on top. There's a few more buried in here I can see. Trying to crawl out already, so I'm gonna put the lid back on. So I've had the cows out here grazing a fresh strip of pasture for a couple of days, and I think we can find some fresh manure piles out here. So let's walk down here and look, and then we'll release a couple of these guys and see what happens. So what is the scoop on dung beetles, and why would anybody buy them? Now, I don't know the context of others, but I can just basically tell you about us and why we would do it. But if you have been following any of the grazing and soil health gurus, then you probably have heard how important dung beetles are, but it's worth repeating that dung beetles are very important for both soil health and the health of your livestock. Now, a healthy dung beetle population can quickly disperse large amounts of manure, spreading out the nutrients contained in that manure, thus playing a very important role in nutrient recycling. Now, this is basically like spreading fertilizer on your land, except the beetles do all the work. Now, this in turn helps the fungi, the soil microbes, and ultimately your plants and your grasses. The other thing is that face flies and horn flies also use manure pats as a source of reproduction. You know, they lay eggs in there. Those eggs hatch, turn into more flies. You know the story. But if you have a good dung beetle population, they can actually break down and disperse the manure before the fly life cycle can even begin, or before that life cycle is completed, if it has begun already, and thus effectively reducing the fly population. According to an entomologist at Oklahoma State University, in some cases the fly load can actually be reduced by up to 90%. Now, who wouldn't want a 90% reduction in the fly load on your cattle or your other livestock? That is a pretty significant reduction in flies. What would that reduction look like in regards to weight gain on your calves, or the ability of your mature cattle to maintain their weight throughout the year? So why did we purchase dung beetles? Well, so just to give you a brief history, we purchased this property in 2019, and that first year I noticed very little dung beetle activity, you know, of any kind. But each year since, it has gotten a little bit better because we've done things to allow them to reproduce, and we'll dive into that a little bit more here in just a second. But like I said, we have noticed an increase in activity, but it's not to the numbers that I would like to see. Now, I read an article recently that was published by Oklahoma State University, and in that article, one of the entomologists stated that in 2014 they started keeping records of the dung beetle population in Oklahoma, and we're actually noticing a pretty sharp decline in the dung beetle population, at least here in Oklahoma. But if it's happening here, I'm just assuming that it's probably happening in other states as well. And in that article, they list several reasons why they believe the population is decreasing. But the number one reason was the use of insecticides and pesticides on livestock, and primarily the use of dewormers such as ivermectin. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not just the fact that dewormers are being used on the cattle, but it's the overuse of dewormers. And so this dewormer goes through the cow or the cattle, other livestock, it's passed through into the manure. Then the dung beetles, you know, this is their primary source of food and reproduction. And us not seeing the dung beetle activity here on this farm, I suspect that the overuse of dewormer was probably the cause as well. And now we really only deworm when it's necessary, and really just specific animals that look like they need it, and ones that tend to carry a heavy worm load. But eventually those end up getting culled, and we send those to the sale barn. Now, some dewormers are supposedly less harmful than others. That can be a little bit subjective. That's not to say that any dewormer is completely safe. It's just some are less harmful. So take that with a grain of salt and do with it what you will. So a few fun facts about dung beetles. Now, as I mentioned, I'm not an entomologist. You know, I don't study insects. I really liked biology in school. So all this is pretty interesting to me. But, you know, I don't know every species there are of dung beetles. There are a lot of them. But I do know there are essentially three types. Those are the dwellers, the tunnelers, and the rollers. And the rollers are sometimes also called the tumblers. Now, the dwellers are actually the first beetles that we seen come back. That is the first activity that I noticed. And now those are easy to see because on the top of your manure patch, you will notice little holes scattered out all on the top. And the dwellers, they basically just move right into that manure pat and start using it as it is. Now, they essentially take up residence in that manure pat. Now, the tunnelers, which is what the rainbow scarabs are that you'll see in this video, that's one of the ones that I purchased from dungbeetles.us. Those are a member of the tunnelers. And what they do is they build tunnels underneath the manure pats. And I don't know if you noticed in the video, some of these rainbow scarabs, or I noticed at least, that they fed on the manure pat for a while, and then when they were done, they went to the edge and they just plowed right underneath that manure pat. I'm assuming to go start building tunnels, because that's what they do. They build tunnel systems underneath the manure pat, then they carry pieces of manure down into those tunnels, lay their eggs in or close to that manure. The eggs hatch, the larvae feeds on that manure until it's time for them to pupate, become adults, and leave the tunnels and start the life cycle all over again. Now the rollers, they're pretty interesting. They actually collect manure and form it into balls that they can then roll away from that manure pat. And these are probably the most iconic dung beetles. This is kind of what most people picture, at least it's what I picture whenever I picture a dung beetle. It's something I may have seen on the Discovery Channel at one point in time, and that's basically what they do. They roll this manure up and they roll it away to their desired location. Most oftentimes it is a tunnel or a burrow that they have built. The difference between them and tunnelers is that they're taking the manure pat and moving it away from that pile, whereas the tunnelers just go right beneath that manure pat and build their tunnels and lay eggs there. So if you thought you had a crappy life, try being a dung beetle. Now, all jokes aside, dung beetles are very important, which is why I purchased these. That is to help kickstart and establish our population of beetles that we may not have, or we just don't have enough of yet. And that way, our land and our animals can reap the benefits. So with that said, I just want to give a quick shout out to dungbeetles.us, which is where I ordered these from. I will leave a link down in the description if you want to check them out. The process was really quick and simple, and it was pretty much exactly how they said it would be. We didn't have any dead beetles. I actually think they included a few extras just in case. And they actually stated on their website that it's very rare for any beetles to die during shipping. And you know, that was my experience as well. And so as of now, the beetles are safe and sound, hopefully doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that is fertilizing the land and getting rid of these manure piles for me. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you all for watching the video. I really do appreciate it. And be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on your way out. Y'all have a great day. God bless, and we'll see you on the next video.